Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I love the nurses that come and see me.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Since I learned about Angel Care, I would recommend them to anybody.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks as always to the producer and editor of our series, Jeff Durall. Also joining us from Eagle Community Television, Brandon Cooley, on camera too. We're visiting with the chief at the University Police Department, Ed Howell, as we talk about 30 plus years as chief at the university and also policing in general. Let's start with some basics, Ed. What got you into law enforcement?
I'm actually fifth generation law enforcement in my family.
Wow.
I can trace that back to my great-great-grandfather, who was town marshal and deputy sheriff. Well, he was town marshal in Jennings and deputy sheriff in Decatur County. My great-grandfather was a deputy sheriff in Cripple Creek, Colorado. My great-uncle was assistant chief in Salina. My dad was chief in Norton, and now, of course, me. So I'm basically 5 generations associated with law enforcement.
No way you could have gone into engineering.
Predisposed, I guess. Another caveat to that is the other things were either carpenters, preachers, or farmers. And oftentimes they did multiple things. They just did not have one profession.
Any regrets about going into law enforcement?
I originally got into law enforcement because I enjoyed interacting with people and helping people. And the way that law enforcement has progressed through the years, it is still the same. But you've seen a lot of legislative changes that makes it a little bit more difficult to do certain things. It's regulated to the point where you have to be statutorily compliant, which you want law enforcement to be. There's no doubt with that. But it's not what it used to be back 30 years ago. There's more complexities with it.
But I know the central key is still, for those of us who have interaction with law enforcement, is still helping people, Ed.
It is.
It's still a central part of what you do as a job.
That is our primary focus. When we deal with people, oftentimes they may not be at their best. And you can't judge an individual by that one moment. We as people are subject to making mistakes, okay? But that one mistake should not define us as a person as a whole. So again, whether that be on the victim side or the individuals that are actually committing a crime, one of the things that I try to convey in my staff is I want you to be fair. I want you to treat that individual like that was your family member, should they find themselves in a similar circumstance. Not meaning that you do minimize it and not do anything about it, but you keep that focal point.
Custer Hall now, brand new location from the original place near the fiscal plant. Quite an improvement, really, to be able to expand your capabilities of doing your job for university policing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the university gave us the tools to carry out our mission. As I said previously, we had about 845 square feet, and now we've got over 5,000 square feet. It makes it more conducive as to what we do day to day for our jobs. One of the things I'd like to highlight is if we have a situation involving a offense, sexual offense, whether that be rape or otherwise, we have the ability to use a multidisciplinary team approach within the conference room. The interview, whether that be with the victim and or person of interest, is done in our interview room. And we don't have 9 or 10 people having a victim to tell that same story to, because everything that we do is captured, both video and audio, in our interview room. And within the conference room, the multidisciplinary team can sit around and watch the interview occur at the time.
And thanks to your input, because I know you had some say-so in the design and the overall implementation of the new location. One of those involved the area of children and how the interaction with children takes place, which is an integral part of sometimes what you have to do.
We've hosted, what I mean by hosted is that we've had several individuals that have been forensically certified to do interviews of children. We've provided the location for that to occur. And again, whether it's a child and or an adult victim, what you want to do is when they tell their story, you want to minimize the number of times that they have to tell that story. So part of the things, and again, it's a tool relating to that investigation, is to be able to record that at the time that it's occurring. So if it involves children, you may have a DCF involved, you may have a child advocate that's involved. You could have 5, 6 people that has a vested legal interest into the outcome of that investigation. But what you attempt to do is minimize the amount of exposure that that victim would have in that circumstance. So that's why we've segregated that, use the multidisciplinary team approach, and use our AV capabilities in recording those interviews.
And in addition to the multidisciplinary approach, you're also working in tandem with Ellis County, with the city of Hays in the way of law enforcement.
Yeah, and you talking specifically with the interviews?
Well, no, with the overall policing, if you will, or law enforcement, if you will.
We're all in it for the same reasons. So any assistance that we can provide, that's what we do.
One of those is communication, which is certainly vital now that we're in the season of tornadoes or when there might be other natural situations, which communication's obviously very important to the work you do to be able to accomplish your goals.
You know, one of the things and concepts behind the Center of Public Safety, which relates to our facility, is at the time that this came about, I had worked with the emergency manager director at that time because Ellis County did not have a designated secondary EOC. EOC is an emergency operations center. So if your primary emergency operations center was compromised, where would people go to manage that event? So as we were designing the Center of Public Safety, we thought, good fit here. We worked with the county commission, emergency manager, and said, we can provide that location for you if you provide the equipment. So that included some computer equipment, that included some communications equipment as it relates to radio, so on and so forth. So at that time, we were the secondary emergency operations center for Ellis County. Now, as things have evolved, the county now has another new building, which rightfully so, that has become the secondary EOC for the county, or the primary EOC for the county, and then they have a secondary.
And now you have become the third operation, so there is a multi-level approach to being able to stay in touch.
You bet, the redundancy.
Tell me about Fort Hays State and Custer Hall specifically. This is no home for you.
It is. As an undergrad, I spent a lot of time in Custer Hall. A, because I was a resident of Custer Hall, and of course there was a lot of social events at Custer Hall. Back in the day, and some people understand what I'm talking about, the university used to have a bar on campus called the Back Door.
Probably so that was legendary, I would assume, to a lot of Fort Hays grads.
Depending on some of the stories that you've heard told, yeah. But that was part of that social integration that you had. So it's kind of ironic when we start talking about the Center of Public Safety, which is our police department, which is now essentially in the same general location as where the bar used to be.
There's another area here that many students, I'm sure, relate to, and that's parking permit situation, which has been, again, with the lobby area, if you will, has been vastly improved to be able to obtain parking permits.
Yeah, one of the things that we looked at, and again, timelines being what they are, about 6 years ago, is why do I have to have everybody come to my office to acquire a parking permit? If you take a look at the attendance and the number of people that we have on site or on campus enrollment, you're looking well over 4,500 people, not to mention faculty, staff, and other supporting entities that need to come to my office to get a parking permit. So we looked at a way using technology to streamline that. And now we have a parking management system that you can go online as long as you're affiliated with the university, whether a student, faculty, or staff, and you can acquire your parking permit online and it'll be mailed out to you. That includes payment, etc. Another nice functionality of our technology is that the enforcement component, because obviously we have to enforce the parking regulations at Fort Hays. That application, once a individual issues you a citation, not only is that citation placed on your windshield, but it also sends you an email.
Technology advancing. Speaking of interactions, if you will, your officers have to respond to parties, to weekends, to events at Fort Hays State. Sometimes those of us from the outside would see this as a kind of a dicey situation that an officer goes into a situation with a large group of students collected for a party where there might be alcohol involved.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what Hays Police Department did on their initiative on Party Smart. One of the things that they put out there is register your party. And what benefit that has to you is if there's a complaint from your neighbors, you might get a phone call from the police department telling you you need to shut it down or you need to do whatever. So it gives you that opportunity. And part of that is that community policing concept in which we all believe in, because you just don't want the police department to show up at the time that we're only taking people away in handcuffs. You want to have that interaction with your community before it escalates to that level. So Hays PD, the city of Hays, they produced a flyer that they handed out, and most recently at our forum that we had last week, fair on landlord-tenant, that provides a wealth of information that gives not only information as it relates to the fines and the violations, but also some of the safety applications.
And this, of course, obviously translates to better community policing with the cooperative effort that it goes back to again, Ed.
Because in effect, what are we trying to achieve as police officers? Compliance. Okay, that's it.
Follow the rules.
Follow the rules. We encourage people to have a good time within those boundaries.
Has the relationship, talk a little about the relationship of students these days from, say, 20, 30 years ago. Have students changed?
Well, it depends on your perspective. Now, I always refer to myself as the old school, per se, because the way that we socialized back in the day, while a lot of it's still the same, a lot of it has changed, especially with the use of technology. You know, your face chat, your Snapchat, your other technology-driven devices, Twitter, you name it. So you also get forums that pop up, whether that be what's wrong in Ellis County. I think that's one of them that's out there. That's on a website that if you want to just sound off, you can. So the way that we communicate has changed. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's worse. But that too has changed, which we have to take into account. But it still relates back to that community policing concept. Whether I'm sitting here talking to you, one of the examples I'll use to you that we apply here at Fort Hays is that I have my officers walk through each of the residential life areas. Why do I do that? That interaction. I want them to get, my students to get exposed to seeing my officers in uniform in that environment in a non-enforcement situation. So they have an opportunity to talk with them. So in the event that we do have to respond and do an enforcement action, you've established that base of communication.
Well, on behalf of the citizens of Hays, if I may say so, we appreciate the work, the effort, the commitment, and the aspects of the entire policing operation, not only in Ellis County, but in the city of Hays and certainly in the University Police Department. We appreciate the work, the effort, the dedication, and the commitment you and your officers have made over these years to keep our community a vibrant, safe community.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service. The Chief of the University Police Department, Ed Howell, is our community connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
My Angel Care physical therapist taught me how to do exercises safely.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
It gives us independence in our home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.